5:30. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If you would stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone who's watching from home. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee DeVore?
Present.
Trustee Gatt?
Present.
Trustee Kazam?
Present.
Trustee Reichert?
Present.
Trustee Wigginton?
Present.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Present.
And I would ask for a motion to permit Trustee Kazam to participate remotely.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
Just before we vote, is she, we need a reason for remote participation? Business?
She's working, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. We would be at approval of the minutes from the Board of Trustees meeting September 3rd, 2024. I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or corrections in the minutes? Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. We'd be at comments from the audience on agenda items only. If you're here to address the board on agenda items, please come forward to the podium, give your name and address, and try and keep your remarks under 5 minutes. Anyone here for public comment? Going once? Twice? Comments from the audience closed. We'd be at appointments. Appointment of Mary Phillip to the Fire Pension Board and Bart Cumming to the Fire Pension Board. Council, would you like a motion on this?
Yeah.
And would you explain, would you please explain?
You can do a voice vote, but we should do them separately.
Would you explain why we're doing this, please?
Yeah, this is one of the requirements, since we now have full-time fire employee who's sitting to my right. We need to appoint a pension board. Their job is somewhat limited with the most recent changes in the pension law that really the pension funds are overseen at the state level, but you still do need a local pension board for various matters, including claims against the pension funds. So even though it's unlikely the board will need to meet very, very often, more than maybe once or twice a year, we still need to appoint them.
Are you okay with the motion to approve both, unless someone wants to divide the question?
Yeah, unless somebody wants to divide it.
I'm going to ask for a motion to appoint both Mary Phillip and Bart Cumming to the Fire Pension Board.
So moved.
Motion to approve the vote proposed.
Is there a second? All right, a motion to divide the question is in order at any time. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
Trustee Gatt?
Aye.
Trustee Kazam?
Aye.
Trustee Reichert? Aye. Trustee Wigginton?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
All right, thank you, Mary and Bart, for offering to do that and volunteering. Thank you. We'd be at old business, resolution number 2024-14, a resolution rescinding prior resolution number 2024-06 regarding the hiring of full-time firefighters. Trustee DeVore, I'd ask for a motion.
I make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is. Trustee DeVore, I'm going to go to you, then I'm going to go to Chief Decker, then we'll go to the rest of the board.
So as we talked about in our last meeting, just whether this was the right option for us, I did go through and kind of run some numbers on several different options that we would have if we either chose to stay with 3 full-time firefighters or chose to go another route that I did provide everyone with. We also wanted Chief Decker to have the opportunity to be here before we voted on it and present his side of things to us. So I'm happy that he was able to be here with us today. I have talked to most of my fellow trustees on what I think would be, smart moving forward. I just want to make sure that we clarify that, even if we rescind this today, it's not that we can't revisit this next month or in 3 months or in 6 months. A lot of things are changing with our finances. There's a lot of things that are happening, and Stephanie did agree to provide us information as readily as she can, maybe quarterly or whatever, with how things are being updated, so that we would we will be able to track kind of where our finances are and what we can afford as a village to support this department. That being said, if it is rescinded tonight, like, the fire department still is getting a $600,000, or still has a $600,000 increase in their budget, and I feel like we are still making strides forward to provide more funds to the department. I also think that this board, maybe in the village as a whole, needs to take part in some sort of recruiting to help support the department, instead of it just being, solely on them, to make sure that we're doing things to help with the volunteer or with the stipend positions and things like that. I do want to take a moment to thank Clerk Turner. Stephanie provided me with every financial question answer that I could have potentially asked her. Even some things I didn't ask for, she did it in an extremely timely manner, and I wouldn't have been able to do my due diligence without the efforts that she made. So thank you, Stephanie, for that. I really appreciate you working with me to give me the answers I needed.
Chief, I'm going to give you the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, trustees, for having me to talk about this. And I really appreciate what you did a couple weeks ago, rather than voting to rescind, to at least speak through this one more time. So now that we have a Fire Police Commission, now that we are moving in that direction, we can't any longer have the same model that we've had. We've got to be limiting on the number of hours per week we can allow people to work, quote-unquote, stipend shifts or part-time. And that will drastically affect the operations that we currently have. To give you an idea, we currently have open shifts on our schedule already, and that's with no reductions. Once some of our members are restricted to the number of hours that they can work per week, and what some of those restrictions will cause, some may choose to not be able to pick up any shifts then, it will be devastating, the change that it's going to do to our department. It's already difficult to fill those spots, and any decrease in personnel or hours that personnel are able to work makes it darn near impossible. I've looked at the schedules quite a bit over the last couple of weeks, and the thought of trying to do it with, in theory, half as many people is very difficult. To be fair, it won't be easy, even with hiring the 3 full-time personnel, because that still is limited. We still have to limit the amount of hours that the remaining part-time people are able to work. So it's still not going to be easy. That is at least manageable. I think one thing that I want to say is, I understand we can revisit it later, but I think the words rescinding the 3-time personnel, that would, the 3 full-time personnel, that's what I believe will be devastating. Because we've come a long way in hiring. It was difficult to get a lot of people to be willing to take the test. We had 20 that were willing to turn out in applications. I think we were down to 15 or so very quickly, and then 10 actually took the written test. From that, we had 8, and then 1 person chose not to go forward with the interviews. And then after the interviews were finished, we have 5 people who are going to be on the list. Those 5 people, a couple of them call me routinely asking, hey, I'm worried about this. I'm hearing things, what's going to happen. Trying to keep them motivated has been difficult, but I have been able to at least encourage them in that, because one thing I do believe, and I say this of all of you, I do believe the board has good intentions of doing everything they can for the fire department. I 100% believe that. And I appreciate the concern, because I also am not someone who wants to hire someone and then look at going to them later and saying we cannot afford for you to be here. So I understand that. No matter what we do, this is going to become difficult. Whether we hire 3 people or we pull back, it's going to be difficult. But pulling back, rescinding completely, I will guarantee you there will be times that people will not sign up for the stipend shifts. And I understand that most volunteer departments are historically ones that when the tones are sounded, members come in from their homes, jump in the fire vehicles, and respond. The problem is most of our volunteers are volunteers from other places. We only have, I think, 5, but did get one today that we believe is going to he's going to move forward in the process. But it's difficult because the village is small, so we have a handful of, I think, 6 or 7 that live within 3 miles, but we have some that live farther away from that. And it's those that like the department, they like the people, they want to be part of it, but they don't feel comfortable, or for some reason, they're not a member of their own department in their area. Or maybe they live in a place that it's a full-time department. So moving forward after today, I think that the only thing that scares me is complete rescinding of this, because it is, I want to continue to stay positive and move forward, do the best with whatever I have, and I will try to make anything work and manage the best that I'm able, but it does cause me concern. I'd like to answer any questions that you have specifically to see if there's anything that I haven't already answered. Or
Any questions?
Do we know how many people do we have currently that are picking up stipend shifts?
I believe total, and the chart I have is from April 28th through September 28th. I think there are 13, if I'm remembering correctly. A couple of them average less than 5 a week, so.
Okay. And then that was with them without the new restrictions.
Correct.
You spoke of. Do you know how many people we're going to need with the new restrictions in place to cover right now, without three full-time
Right.
employees? How many stipend positions would you need to ensure that a majority of our, if not all of them, shifts are covered?
I tried to. It was this afternoon that this math popped into my head, and it was a conversation I was having with the Dunlap Fire Chief. And if you look at they have a 32-hour restriction, and the number of volunteers that they have are 9 or 10. Because of the high number of volunteers they have throughout their community, they only ask for coverage for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, so 40 hours. And they have 9 or 10 to cover those 40 hours. So you can see that's like 4 is the average number each person is working. So I also called Germantown Hills. I know that they have stipend shifts or part-time shifts as well. And they have a similar number. They have 7 part-time employees, and they cover 50 hours a week. So it's a little bit better. I can't remember what the number is, but it's similar. So best case scenario, to cover stipends, we would need 14 people that are willing to average 24 hours a week. Now, if they were averaging 32 hours a week, I think that's cut down to 11 or so. But when I was speaking with the Dunlap Fire Chief, I asked him about coverage, and he said, man, Dan, I have a hard time getting anybody to apply now. They have 9 or 10, can't remember exactly. So it's a very difficult thing right now because, as you know, full-time firefighters are not either, whether it's the union or city policy procedure manual, does not often support the working of like a fire crew on a part-time basis because of pension issues, get hurt someplace else and then come into work. So what we're relying on are those people out there either work for other departments, or maybe they used to be on a department, they enjoyed it, but for work or whatever, they got away from it, but they want to get back into it. There just aren't a large number of people. So to give you an idea, if we, best case scenario, 11, I think it would probably take, I'm guessing, 20 to 25 to cover that much time. I don't want to exaggerate, I just want to be honest, But if I look at the number of hours that people are picking up, we had a group of people that worked the majority. Like I said, we're going to have to change that. And the others, though, are quite a bit lower each week.
Okay.
Trustee Wigington, can you speak into the microphone when you talk, please?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, Trustee Weisenberg, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Oh.
I was looking at you and then I said that. No one can hear
That's
you.
a W.
Sorry. Chief Decker, I have a question on that. Do you know what Dunlap and Germantown Hills are paying?
I do. It's, let me see, I don't know if I wrote that. I know it's similar, actually, I know Dunlap is either $15, $17, or $20 per hour.
15,
Based-
17, or 20? Okay.
Based on no credentials whatsoever, they get $15 an hour for those willing to do it. And this is not only their, no, I'm sorry, this is not necessarily their stipend, this is their members in general. Because when they're like a per call pay type, if they have either EMT or basic operations firefighter, then they're up to the 17. If they have both, then they get the 20. But I believe, don't hold me to this, I believe though that all of their crews that are hired for the duty crew are dual, so they would make the $20 per hour. And I know Germantown Hills is similar to that. It's a little bit more complex scale, but they have like 4 or 5 different levels but it's right around that $20 range for an average.
Okay, do you know if either one of them are offering health insurance benefits?
You know, Germantown Hills is, and they're the ones that only have 7 employees.
Okay.
I did not ask him how many were taking advantage of that. I know Dunlap is not, but I think
They do not offer health insurance, you're saying?
no,
Okay.
Brandon said they do not. I think one of the biggest differences between those departments, which honestly surprised me, they only run, I think Dunlap is 400 to 500 calls per year, and Germantown Hills is about 500, maybe 600 calls per year. Ours is at least double that.
And you know Chief Decker, and you might not know this, but do they allow, like does Dunlap and Germantown Hills, do they allow each other to, I don't know how to put this, post a schedule of available shifts? Like if someone on the Dunlap was at their 24 hours, but Germantown Hills had some available hours, do they swap?
You know, that's a good question. Trustee Riker asked something similar a couple months ago, and I did check. I sent an email to all the area chiefs, and I didn't get a response of no, but I got a response of concern that hey, if we encourage our guys to go to your place and work, then there are hours that they're not able to volunteer for our department. I don't believe anybody's prohibited.
Max.
I'm sorry?
That the thought is if they were at their max hours, they couldn't do it even if they wanted to.
I don't think it's disallowed. I believe the chief, some of them would discourage it. I don't think they could or would tell them no, because volunteerism in general is so difficult right now.
Right.
Most places are willing to, hey, if you're willing to volunteer for us, unless you're doing something wrong, we'll keep you on. It's my impression.
Chief Decker,
Yeah.
Yes.
if we were to,
Oh,
if
yours
we,
is- Yeah.
if we were to rescind this, and they were saying in 3 months down the road, we could then come back and revisit it and hire them. Honestly, do you think in 3 months, those people will still be around? I mean, I would think they would probably say, well, wait a minute, they rescinded, I can't wait, and they're gonna go somewhere else, is my concern.
That's my concern as well. I'm afraid of the impression. I know one person is, and I don't know if I'm supposed to know this, I know one person is talking to another fire department, has gone through the process there. I know this is where he wants to be, and I know that his family wants him to be here. So that's one reason I'm eager. There's only one person of that 5 that I haven't spoken to since then, and those 4 are concerned about about just how it's going. I have encouraged them that this is more of an assurity that their future will be protected rather than, unsure of whether, because my impression is you all want to do it. Everybody wants to go forward. It's just a concern about finances. So I am concerned that they won't be, either that they won't be available or willing, or they will be less willing to leave whatever security that they have.
And Chief Decker, you had just mentioned the concerns regarding their futures being secure, and I know we had talked about that. That's one of my concerns as well. If we do move forward with hiring these three full-time firefighters, and then have to lay them off in 6 months due to budget constraints, that would be a significant setback to the fire department as well. So I'm really concerned about the projections that we had received from Clerk Turner and the ability and hiring people when I'm not sure that those jobs are sustainable. These firefighters, I don't know them personally, but I assume they have families and they have people that rely on them for housing and food and electricity and that sort of thing. And the thought of hiring them when the administration is telling me that there's no money to hire them is concerning. And I know we spoke about that. And then at the risk of sounding like a broken record, it is the responsibility of the 6 of us up here to ensure that there's adequate fire coverage. That is why we were elected, to provide basic services: fire, police, public works. Those are the top 3. Some may disagree with me on that and try to put economic development up there ahead of that, but at the end of the day, when the people are sitting at home, they want to be safe and they want public works. And that is our primary responsibility. So if we don't provide those resources to the fire department and there's lack in coverage, that's on the 6 of us. I know that doesn't help the numbers, but it is a problem we've got to fix. We've got to make sure that the fire department has the resources they need to cover those shifts.
I appreciate you saying that, Trustee Weisenberg. I was looking at our general fund, and Clerk Turner again had prepared a nice pie chart for me, and visual helps me a lot. So looks like between fire and police, it makes up 50% of our budget. Fire's 23%, police is 40%, and that makes up, well, I guess that makes up 63. So then we have streets at 15 or 11. So we do put a good investment into our fire. As Trustee DeVore had stated, our numbers, I think since I've been on the board, have grown from 250,000 to, this breakdown is 1.452 million for fire. So we have grown this budget in the 4 years I've been sitting here fairly significantly. And it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Trustee DeVore, but this motion doesn't take away any of that
No, it takes
funding.
away none of the funding, no.
Okay.
Their budget is slightly lower than what is on that pie chart, though. Things have changed, so their budget is more like 996,000, I believe. So we did lower that a little bit when we were trying to balance the budget. So I would like to just be transparent that they are not getting, it's not 1.4, it is just under the $1 million right now.
But if I recall, when we were trying to balance the budget, the reason we were having the full-time firefighters hired at this stage was that we could only afford 6 months of.
Correct.
Yes.
So, I mean, I guess at the time it made sense, but again, then you fast forward 6 months and what happens then? So,
I'd like to say a few things. I want to address the board. Let's not lose track of the strides we've made with the fire department last year. We've hired a full-time chief. We've increased the budget to almost $1 million. We've increased the stipends considerably. We've done a lot in a year, but I want to go back and touch on some of the budget issues, some misinformation that's out of there. I think some things that were coming up were surprise budgets, revenues. Of course, we're always worried when we lose a business. But we had these discussions about 6 months ago, and we knew what we could afford. And the board had the options to either, one, we could put this off a year till we knew what we could afford, or we could start the process and move the starting line to 6 months, and that's what we did because we wanted Chief Decker to get going and establish these things and give him a budget to work with. But we knew at that time, and I explained to you that if budget year 25-26, and we had a whole year of full-time employees through the fire department, we had to make some decisions, and that's what we discussed. One of the decisions I said we were going to have to do was raise sales tax. Second, property tax. Third was going to be personnel issues, and you have to start with the police department. It's the largest budget, and I brought this option up, and I know that we had the ex-fire chief get up and make a comment last board meeting, and I didn't take it personal, and I hope he doesn't take this personal, that I already went through that, and if he would have watched the meetings and seen the post from our PR guy, he would have seen that I recommended that. That was going to be something that we had to do, was cut officers if we got to personnel, to afford a year-round of the 3 paid firemen. So all those were discussed, and I applaud your decision that you decided that we should move forward and get the process started. And again, moving the start date, we could afford this budget year. So, I just want to get that out there because there's been a lot of misinformation about that. But I want to applaud all the board members for the amount of time they've put in on this topic over the last year. It's not a new topic, as we all know. I think that we're all in this together. We want the same thing, and that's coverage. Now we just have to find how we're going to pay for it. And I know that some of these are going to be tough decisions down the road, and we're going to have them. But I just wanted to dispel some of the myths out there about how this was some shock. We knew what we were paying for. We knew what we were getting and how much we could afford. And moving forward, my only comment to the board was, how are we paying for it budget year 25-26? Because that's where the numbers you just were talking about, Trustee Wigington. So we rolled that back about $400,000 and we could afford it. So we passed a balanced budget. So I think that's my take on it, is that I know there's some tough decisions, and I don't want to hire people and have to lay them off either. That's a tough road. And once you do that, that's a tough stigma to shake. We'll have a horrible reputation. No one will ever come here. So I know it's a tough decision, but I do think it's a decision that needs to be made tonight, I think, either way, so we can move forward. The good thing is Trustee Decker does have, either way, whatever way it goes, Fire Chief Decker does have $1 million in his budget to work with, and I'm sure he's very capable of doing an outstanding job, so I have full confidence in that. So that's my comment.
Chief Sutton, I just want to say that if I put out any information that appeared that we were not given those facts, that was not my intention. I know that we did have all these conversations, it was prevalent, and if I'm being completely honest about it, I really just thought that financially the income would have been different. I also think there were a lot of decisions that we made in a really short time frame. Like, it seemed to be all the decisions we were making regarding the fire department were quick, or things were constantly changing, not at fault of this administration or the board. Like, we just would find out new information. So for me, it was important. That's why I requested for Clerk Turner to give us the analysis, and I had asked Wayne for some information, as well as digging deep on this fire department. Because I do feel like things have slowed down, and I thought our projections were going to be better than what they are. Like, I definitely thought we were going to have more coming in, and we would be able to pull it out, and we would be able to afford it. So me changing my decision is based on maybe being too optimistic when we had these conversations 6 months ago.
My misinformation comment was directed at nobody at this board. Nobody at all. We have weekly conversations, and it wasn't, I understand why your comment was how something changed. That was an insurance issue. It wasn't a budget issue. So that wasn't directed at you at all. This was other information that had been brought to me. It was directed, not at this board, because we speak weekly. So, and I appreciate that. So I don't think there was any confusion on our part. So it wasn't aimed at you, trustee.
I didn't take it personally,
Okay.
I just know that some things were said, even in our last meeting, like, these numbers are not new to us, this is
Right.
not shocking. And I just want to make it clear that there was no misinformation given from you to us. I
Okay.
do think that
All right.
the numbers have been transparent on what the full-time fire department would cost this whole time.
And I think, I echo that. I think some of the reality is that also Springfield, in their wisdom, has taken away the grocery tax, which represents about over half the budget of our trash contract. So that is a major hole that we have yet to figure out how to fill that.
That's an approximate $300,000 loss.
$300,000.
Right.
So, you know, that we also have to figure that out too.
And one thing I'll point out, Trustee Wigington, is you are correct that we have met the needs. We have risen to the occasion, and we continue to fund the fire department more than we have in the past. But the transition we're making from a strictly volunteer department to a hybrid or possibly a full-time department is, I mean, it's kind of night and day comparison when it comes to funding. Most towns our size tackled this issue decades ago. So I think, you know, that's the strength of our volunteers, that we were able to maintain a strictly volunteer department for so long when all the other surrounding towns around us figured out this difficult issue of funding a fire department a long time ago. And I'm sure it wasn't easy for them either. I'm sure they struggled and dropped the ball a few times and had to relook at their plan and readjust to new information. I think the important part is that we're focused on the Peoria Heights Fire Department providing these public services for the citizens of Peoria Heights. And the plans can change. I mean, it's just because that was something that we thought we could do a year ago, as new information comes available, we should adjust. I don't think we should stick to a plan just in spite of sticking to a plan, despite information to the contrary. So I'm confident in the future of the Peoria Heights Fire Department. I think they have a legacy that speaks for itself. And I think regardless, we're going to be all right.
Anyone else? Chief Decker, anything else?
I don't think so. Just, I don't want to rehash everything I've said, so I think that's it.
Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee DeVore.
Aye.
Trustee Gett.
Nay.
Trustee Reichert. Nay. Trustee Wigington.
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg.
What happened to Beth?
I'll come back to her, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Trustee Kazam, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Aye.
All
So
right, that
the
was 4 ayes with 2 nays.
Motion to rescind passes 4-2. All right, on to new business. Next is approval of the use of Tower Park for Peoria Heights Fine Art Fair on Saturday, May 10th, and Sunday, May 11th, 2025. Trustee DeVore, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the use of Tower Park for the Fine Arts Fair.
Second. All right, go ahead, Trustee DeVore.
The Fine Arts Collaborative is here, Jane Johnson is here with us, and she did provide all of the trustees with a little map. It should be in front of you, sitting down, of what their plan is in the layout for the 2025 Fine Arts Fair. And then the front summary page is just about like what the timing is gonna be and so forth.
I would like to thank,
Hi, Jane, come on to the mic, please.
I would just like to thank the village for all the help that they did. It was excellent working with Chief Sutton on everything, and it couldn't have been better. It was a great art fair, not any negative comments or feedback, just the artists were happy, and I think it pulled in, the public was too. So thank you.
Well, thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Any
For all you do.
questions? Discussion? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
Trustee Gett?
Aye.
Trustee Kazam?
Aye.
Trustee Reichert? Aye. Trustee Wigginton?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
That passes. Next is ordinance 2024-1736, an ordinance approving and authorizing the execution of a Peoria Heights Tax Increment Financing District 1, Peoria Heights Business Development District Number 2, redevelopment agreement by and between the Village of Peoria Heights and Beck Oil Company of Illinois. Trustee Kazam, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Back to you, Trustee Kazam, then we'll go to Wayne.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Director Aldrich and everyone for putting this deal together. Director Aldrich put a very comprehensive action report in our paperwork this evening, and I'm sure that everyone has familiarized themselves with it. Beck's Oil, which is located at 910 and 922 East War Memorial Drive, has done an extensive remodeling of that area to the tune of $15 million. And I will actually turn this over to Director Aldrich to explain further, if that's okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Aldridge.
Thanks, Mayor. So, yeah, I wanted to go through a few points in review of the project and then talk a little bit more about the agreement.
Pat with Beck Oil, please come up. We're probably going to ask you for some comments too, please, so welcome.
Pat Berry is here with Beck's Oil. Pat's the CFO of Beck's Oil, but thanks, Pat, for being here. So, you know, we've discussed this before, Beck's Oil. Why don't we have an agreement? Well, I think this project has been different, even different in my experience, just because things change along the road. So we began discussions, I think, on the agreement in early 2022. So at that point, Beck's wanted to develop the site and really wanted access off War Memorial. So that's the plan we were pursuing at the time. And I think, as you know, the access off War Memorial became difficult because of the access restrictions imposed by IDOT. So we worked on that plan with some process and progress with IDOT, but all that related to more delays in the project. So Beck's went back, refigured the site plan out, and decided they could get access off of Central and Paris. That would work for them. And then still negotiating with IDOT for the intersection. So traffic studies were performed, which is very common in projects like this. And again, we not only considered the site plan, but the adjacent streets. So that's where the deal kind of changed along the route, and new estimates were performed for the site as well as the adjacent streets. So I think the project still is not completely done. I see that they're doing the traffic signals kind of as we speak. So these things take time, take a lot more time than what they used to take. So that's been the project. Again, there is I think we have a good summary of that project, but
For the sake of the public, Mr. Aldridge, will you highlight some of the pay-as-you-go agreement and how it's going to work?
Yeah, I mean, I can get to that. I think right now, I think the project costs for site work and signage, which are the TIF and BDD eligible costs, ultimately amounted to a little over $4 million. And then the street costs, intersections, things like that were about $1.6 million. So again, those are costs that are eligible for reimbursement primarily through TIF, and some of the site costs were eligible for reimbursement through BDDs, such as things like signage. So ultimately in negotiations, the TIF eligible costs and other costs for the public works improvements, meaning the streets and intersection, came down a little bit because of Beck's participation in the intersection and some other costs. So that ultimately came down to $1.3 million. And again, I consider these costs separate. I mean, site development costs separate from streets costs because site development costs are TIF eligible, but streets costs are really public works types costs and things that the village may be liable for anyway. So in a development deal like this, there's usually some sort of sharing of those costs for the street work. So when it comes down to it, the negotiated deal, and we'll talk about revenue sources later, but through the TIF and BDD, we're trying to reimburse BEX for their costs in that amount of 5.5 million thereabouts. So that's being done through TIF and BDD reimbursements for the amounts that are generated by the project. So those amounts will be paid out as typical pay-as-you-go, like we typically do, for the life of the TIF and the life of the BDD. So not 100% sure that BEX will ever reach that point, but we hope so, through the assessments and the BDD and TIF reimbursements. So kind of getting into benefits from the project. And the other point I'd like to make is we're considering this agreement with the next item, which is an ordinance to vacate a portion of Paris Avenue, kind of together. So if we could discuss those together.
Good, yeah, please go right ahead.
Proceed. So anyway, part of this deal is, gaming. So right now, I think BEX has 6 gaming spots
Yes.
in the project.
Yes.
And the site is eligible for being a truck stop, which would allow them to have 4 more gaming spots and offer 24-hour gaming at this location. So that could be much more revenue for the village and for BEX if this is accomplished. So to achieve that, the site needed to be 3 acres. As the site was originally, it was about 2.78 acres. So BEX looked to adjacent properties to buy some property, additional property to achieve that, could not get those deals made. So turned to the village and asked the village what we could do as far as vacating portions of Paris Avenue. We looked at several options. So that's something I've been involved with before, is vacating public streets. It's not something that's uncommon, but in this case, to achieve 3.0 acres, we agreed to vacate a portion of Paris Avenue to achieve that. So for that, that's the topic of the next agenda item, is the ordinance to vacate that portion of the street. But for that, we got it appraised. $52,000 was the appraised value of that portion. Reasonably speaking, nothing really changes. We have all rights and access to use the street and the sidewalk and everything on that portion as a public street. Utilities have an easement. Maintenance would still typically be ours for that. But so it's just a cooperative agreement that achieved the ability for BEX to get the 24-hour gaming with the 4 additional spots. So the next item will authorize that vacation. The $52,000 will be reimbursed to the village off the top of the BDD and TIF increment. So before BEX collects anything from those amounts, the first $52,000 will come to the village. So that's the form of payment for that right of way. Talking about a few other terms of the agreement. The agreement, positive things, certainly the whole development is very positive, but $15 million is the approximate value for the project by BEX, employing 16 full-time equivalent positions. primarily, most of the income from the property will be from folks outside of the village because it's on Ward Drive, so that's a big benefit. We anticipate revenues, and these are very, very conservative revenues, from sales tax, motor fuel tax generated by the project at $350,000 for the first year, and that's anything starting when you open prior to March 31st of 2025. And again, these are very conservative numbers. We wanted them to be conservative. Year 2, $430,000. Year 3 and beyond, $470,000. So again, very conservative numbers. The agreement has a kind of a threshold number that Bex needs to produce at least $388,000 in sales tax and motor fuel tax beginning March 31st of 2025. So if these projections are correct, that shouldn't be a problem. And again, that number was knocked down like 25% of what we really truly anticipate Bex to produce for the village. I think I've got a few more points in this, but again, a very important development for the village, generating considerable sales tax and motor fuel tax for the village. The other thing I'd like to bring up is Bex went ahead and paid for all of the intersection improvements. You might recall there was a redevelopment deal for the other side, catty corner from this site, that was going to pay for a portion of those improvements. Remains to be seen whether that happens, that redevelopment deal. It might be, we might have a new redevelopment deal for development on the other side. In that case, we might push for reimbursement again for intersection improvements that Bex went ahead and completed. So I think that's an important point, that we might get some of this money back through another redevelopment deal. I think that's it. I mean, a great improvement. It's been a long time coming, and thanks to you, Pat and Bill, with our negotiations, a little bit different that it took so long. I apologize for that, but it's been a good relationship, and that'll, I believe, continue. So thank you.
For sure. Wayne, thank you. Before we go to questions and comments, Pat, I want to welcome you, and we're very proud to have you and your company here in the community. For the public, would you give an overview of your company and this particular project?
Yeah.
Anything Wayne left out?
Yes, thank you, Wayne. That was covered everything just about. But yeah, no, thank you so much for welcoming us and working with us through this whole process. We ran into some curveballs along the way, but we're extremely happy with what we have over there and being here in the village. We're headquartered out of Princeton, Illinois, so we're fairly local. And we have 18 gas stations, 3 car washes, and so yeah, this is by far our biggest development, most costly development, and but yeah, we're very, very proud of it. So thank you.
Trustee Weisenberg, do you have it?
Thank you. If you could show me here, Mr. Aldrich, like what parts of Paris are they getting? Like, would it be the entire street?
It's not the entire street. It's like the northern, I would say northern half plus the sidewalk area. Yeah.
Like, would it cover like the on-street parking here? Would it
not on the south side, no.
No, just the north side here.
Yes.
And then when we've vacated roads before, the cost for upkeep and snow removal and all that stuff has fallen on the people who we've vacated the property to. So why is that different?
Well, it's something that, to me, it's more of an issue of reasonableness. I mean, it's better that we just go ahead and plow the snow on the whole street and things like that. If there was a replacement, we might talk to them about that, but I think it's easier just to be reasonable and say, well, let's take care of the entire thing. That's my opinion.
Council,
I believe it's only 24 feet is the portion we're coming from the property line out is only 24 feet.
24 feet, so it's not exactly all the way to the center line.
Okay.
Council, do you have anything to add to that answer?
Yeah, I would say what separates this from a typical vacation is usually when we vacate, there's no longer a street, there's nothing to maintain. In this case, we're vacating it, but we're reserving right-of-way easement, so the sidewalk is going to remain, for village public use. It's not going over to strictly private use.
Okay.
So that's really the answer.
And then the designation as a truck stop is purely just to satisfy the state, correct?
Yes.
Okay, it's not going to, operations aren't going to be any different?
No.
Because it's currently set up to take semis anyway.
Yes,
Right.
yeah. We wish the state would use a different term than
No,
the
I
truck
get it.
stop and large truck stop, because there's a certain connotation with that, but no,
Yeah.
that's, operations would be the same as they are now.
And then with this redevelopment agreement that we're about to sign, can we, I know I'm a little late in the game on this, but could we make I don't want to say demands, but I know there was some concerns within the community regarding lack of a automatic door. Like the gas station is really nice with the ADA sidewalk, being able to walk right in. But if you're in a wheelchair, you can't open that door. You
Okay.
roll up to it, and it's really difficult to open the door. So would door openers be covered under a TIF agreement? Like if we,
Boy, that's a question for Jacobs and Klein.
Okay.
I think that might be something that could be rolled into.
yeah, I'd gotten comments from several constituents who want to use the gas station. They're in a wheelchair, but it's kind of a
Okay.
dignity issue to roll the wheelchair up to the door and then not be able to get in and have to wait.
Okay, yeah, we'll definitely consider that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And maybe the chicken?
We will not consider that.
I still go to Chillicothe a lot and Washington. You guys got some good chicken, but maybe I shouldn't eat it so much.
The chicken is wonderful.
but it
It's
is
just
great.
really hard to
Yeah.
operate and be profitable.
Okay, well, if we could get the door openers, that'd be
Yeah,
good.
all right.
I have a question about the vacation. So obviously, we don't have an issue, like Bex is great to work with, we're not worried about that. If they were to sell this property to somebody else, what happens to this property? Like, is there anything for them, from another company or anybody saying like, yeah, we're mad at you, so we're gonna block this off because now it's our property?
They can't. They can't. This will be recorded. We have full access and easement rights for public right-of-way. So if they blocked it, it would be no different than anybody blocking a city street.
Okay. And that's completely enforceable.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
they can't come in, tear up the sidewalk and say, well, now I want this to be grass?
No, they cannot.
Okay.
So, and to that point, Mark, so we're building in the easement for ingress and egress for the properties on the south side, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's over the entire vacated parcel. We're maintaining full, ingress, egress rights. I can look at it and tell you the exact language. We have all the utility easements and full right-of-way use for vehicular and pedestrian traffic.
So we just want to make sure that those residential properties to the south side of Bex have access to their homes. So,
They're unaffected by the vacation.
Okay.
It's strictly on the north side.
okay. And, I think this is an important development. I think this project has already been a great success. I've been over there quite often.
Thank you.
I think the trustees, all of us up here, recognize the importance of this development. And I think that's reflected, honestly, in this agreement. I think this is a pretty good agreement for
Yes.
Bex.
Yes.
And I hope that Bex knows that we would love to continue to be a partner with you in future endeavors as well.
Yep.
Because I think this document speaks for itself and how we are a committed partner in growth opportunities here in the Heights.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate that.
Anyone else? I would just be remiss if I did not thank John Berkland, because I had been pestering John with Springer and Berkland for quite some time to introduce me to the folks at Beck Oil, and he did that. He brought Bill Smith down here, and Dustin and I met with Bill and took a liking to each other and decided on a project. This was before Wayne was hired, so Dustin started it off from the beginning, and then Wayne came, and both of you, I want to thank you both very much, Wayne and Dustin, for all the work you've put in on this. It wasn't easy because IDOT being involved, and also thanks to the community and the board for having the foresight to adopt a comprehensive plan for the village along with the strategic plan, because within that strategic plan was the vision to extend TIF districts and the business development district to War Memorial Drive. We recognized that a 30,000 car count a day existed on War Memorial Drive, and we weren't really taking advantage of that. So by your deciding to do that and spending the money to do that has enabled us to pull this project off. It probably would not have happened without TIF and BDD incentives. So this also will probably be one of the biggest economic development projects in Peoria Heights in decades. It's going to provide us with a variety of sales tax revenue, as Wayne mentioned, from gaming to sales tax to motor fuel tax, which is vitally important to us. As we know, we have roads that need to be improved, and this will generate huge amounts of motor fuel tax money. So it's very exciting for me. I congratulate Bex for hiring all local tradespeople, paying living wages. For the people who built the project, you're also providing jobs for our residents at your facility and providing a great service, and just amazed at the amount of traffic that you have there already. So thank you for being here, and maybe we can talk about something on Route 29 in the future.
We definitely can, sure.
Okay. Anyone else? Madam Clerk?
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
Trustee Gett?
Aye.
Trustee Kazam?
Aye.
Trustee Reichert? Aye. Trustee Wigginton?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
That passes. So next we would be at ordinance 2024-1737, an ordinance providing for the vacation of parts of Paris Avenue. Trustee Kazam would ask for a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
And a second, please.
Second.
All right, back to you, Trustee Kazam.
Well, there's very little for me to say. This actually goes hand in hand with what Director Aldrich was just explaining.
Thank you. I think we've covered it, but anyone who would like to ask a question, go right ahead.
Do we know, as far as the easement is concerned, on the roadway easement, how much do we have on the south side if future endeavors required us to expand this road?
I don't know the full extent of the right-of-way unless it's shown.
It's usually about.
We've got a lot of right-of-way. Paris is not as wide as it could be. So I think there's plenty of space for expansion.
It's on here. It's total 60-foot right-of-way, which is typical.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Madam Clerk?
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
Trustee Gett?
Aye.
Trustee Kazam?
Aye.
Trustee Reichert? Aye. Trustee Wigginton?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
That passes. Pat, thanks for being here. Give our best to Bill. Next is Resolution 2024-15, a resolution amending and restating Resolution Number 2024-13, providing a financial commitment for, and authorizing an application by the Village of Peoria Heights for the Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program funds for lighting and paved shared use path buffer for Illinois Route 29 Goleta Road project. Trustee Reichert, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve Resolution 2415.
A second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Trustee Reichert.
I'm actually handing this off to Wayne, man of the hour.
Thanks. So first, I'd like to apologize because this resolution came before you in its prior format a couple meetings ago. So things change, and I think at that point in time, a couple things were unknown to me, as the cost percentages offered in the grant were a little bit different as far as participation, and also the estimate. So I like to get the resolutions out of the way just because they're something that takes some time to get, but apologize for that. So things have changed. The estimates were higher, and the grant also doesn't pay, we typically assume 80/20 for these types of grants, but for certain aspects of this project, it applies only 50/50. So that we had to adjust our numbers because of that, but had Herman Associates and Dewberry actually look into this for an estimate for the project. What has happened is the estimates, as we calculated this time, $850,000 for the match and about $2.5 million for the share from this grant, the Illinois Transportation Enhancement Grant share. As you may recall, the grant is for roadway lighting, which is both for the road and for the shared use path or trail that IDOT is going to build. And IDOT, again, does not provide lighting in municipalities for these types of things. And then we also added what I call a safety buffer, a buffer strip, which is paved between the trail and the roadway curb. So on their own, IDOT would not pave that. They would leave it in grass, which I think we all had some maintenance concerns with if that was just grass. So I think a paved surface and a textured surface in that case is what is called for. Couple just points about the grant. It's a one in every 2 years they offer this grant. The state offers this grant, offer a total of about $140 million for statewide projects. I think in this case we have a good chance for this grant because it is associated with an IDOT project. So we're doing all the coordination necessary with IDOT for this. I think they're excited that we're actually thinking about doing this work on the project. The other things we talked a little bit about last time when we considered funding for this project is really kind of a long-term project. So if we get are awarded this, probably it'd take about a year for there to be any sort of expenditures at all. And the first expenditures would be engineering, which is probably less than $100,000, maybe a little bit more, but around at that range for engineering. And that would be done in conjunction with IDOT, with their project. And then we would probably wait for any other expenditures until construction would begin. And I think that would be maybe 2 years, 3 years down the road before any construction would begin. And this type of work would be towards the tail end of their project, which would probably be at least a 2-year project. So that's, the expenditures would be quite a ways down the road, which would leave the village some time to consider financing options for the project. The other thing to mention is lighting alternatives for this project. We could do it on our own, and that would be more conventional poles, meaning wood poles or something like that. We ran those numbers. And even if with wood poles, it'd be something like $1.2 million for just the lighting portion. The pavement, would still be about $800,000, no matter what. Other options for lighting are typically in the village, unless we build the lights, we have an option through Ameren to light streets, but that would typically be inadequate for this type of road. There's a utility line on the east side of the road that there could be lights on that. We still pay that through a rental, through a franchise agreement. So that cost would be 100% village if we were to go down that route to adequately light the roadway. We talked about potentially in that area, we don't have a TIF. TIF is eligible for that area, so if the village board wanted to initiate a TIF in that area, that could be done. TIF is just another financing mechanism that could be used. The other thing to mention about this particular grant is there's a calculated community score for each applicant. So they're trying to determine if they can help with the local match. So our community score is 48 points for this area. And IDOT will pay 100% of the match sometimes, or 50% of the match, depending on what the community score is. So based on the last round of this grant, a 48-point score meant that half of the match was forgiven. So IDOT paid for half of that match. So in this case, at 850, be 425,000 would be the match. So can't guarantee that. It's based on the applicant pool, things like that, if they would match that amount. The other things, one other item just to consider is a lot of attention being paid to this corridor, not just by IDOT, but other folks. So this is on, I forget, is it the Great River Trail? So I think there's grants out there for that.
Illinois River Road.
Illinois River Road, so thank you, Mayor. The other thing is, we just heard from Regional Planning this afternoon that they got a 100% IDOT planning grant for this corridor, for the trail specifically, from Peoria all the way to Chillicothe. So we'll kind of be included on the tail end, but there could be some benefits through that planning process that help with this project. So I think this is one of the top priorities. You know, we talk about Prospect, we talk about Glen, we talk about Route 29. So I think this is one of our top priorities. The other funding notion we've talked about, again, is if we're successful on Prospect Road, you know, there'll be a match there too. So we're looking at other matches. So there would be a financing plan, you know, even if we got a substantial grant for that project, there'd be some matching funds there too that we'd have to consider how to finance that. So I think that's all to mention. I highly recommend this.
Questions?
I think,
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry. You can go ahead.
So is the road's lit now, so when they complete their project on Route 29, are they going to put the lights back up? Are they tearing them down? There's lights there now. You drive down there, it's lit up.
The lights now are on the utility poles on the east side typically.
Those are not IDOT's lighting, are they?
I believe we should pay for those lights because they would be our franchise lights.
So the road is lit now. So when the project's completed, if we do nothing, and that IDOT comes through, they redo the road, what's happening with the existing lights?
Well, the poles may have to be reconfigured, so there could be lights put back on those poles, not saying there couldn't be.
With state funds or our funds?
With our funds.
So they're going to come through and do the road, tear the lights down, and
Because they're widening it.
well, that's what I'm trying to get at. Why would they take the lights down in their project and not put them back up?
It's less about the lights, more about the poles. They may have to move those poles or replace the poles.
No, I understand that, but why isn't that part of the scope of their project?
It is part of the scope of their project, but it depends on where the poles are, who pays for the poles. I would also add that the road is wider and it'll be widened to the west, so it's just harder to light with those types of poles at a lower level. So.
Okay.
Okay, so,
And then, you know, we had discussed previously the cost of this, and we, you know, just last week, or maybe it was the meeting before, we went through all of our projections. Well, the projections didn't account for $250,000 more dollars, and when we went through the projections, there wasn't any money left. So where's the $250,000 coming from? From the 6 to the 850?
Well, as Wayne mentioned earlier, that, you know, it's not expenditure we're going to look at this year, but it is something we're going to have to look at, and we don't know what our finance is going to be. We have to look at financing options.
Right, no, I understand.
Do we have to bond? Do we have to get in reserves? And I agree, I think with all the decisions that we have to make, we have a lot of expenses coming up. That's why we had this discussion tonight on the fire department. So I agree with you.
No, it's just.
But I do think it's important. I guess, and I know you've already covered this, Wayne, what kind of commitment? Are they just looking for, I mean, what's the deadline on this, I should say?
That's why I wanted to always cover this sooner,
Yeah.
but the deadline will be the end of the month. So the grant goes in at the end of the month. So we really need an answer, kind of all or nothing answer on this to get this grant submitted. Again.
And once the board approves that, then once we get to that level, let's say it's 1.5 years or 2 years, then.
Director Aldrich?
Then we have to come up with that money.
Yes.
Correct.
Well, it's just the optics of it. We went through our projections, we laid it out in front of us, there's nothing left. I think when we got to the end, I can't remember the term Clerk Turner used, but there was so many funds that you had to keep, in your funds, and all of our money was spoken for. And now we need $250,000 more dollars, and we're like, okay, let's just say yes.
Our margins they were just over $6,000.
Right,
That's how tight they were.
That's what I'm saying. So I don't know where this $250,000 is coming from.
Well, I think there is some sticker shock over the increased cost of this, but I'd like you to think in the big picture. And a good example just occurred a few minutes ago on the Beck project. So, I'm a believer that Route 29 is an untapped resource for the village, not only for sales tax revenue, but something that I think is very dear to you and to me, and that's housing. I think if you invest the money in that road, and IDOT is going to make it a better, safer, wider road, the bike trail will provide a huge amenity and connectivity all throughout the Rock Island Trail and up to Forest Park Nature Center and south and across the new span of the bridge, possibly sometime up on the way up to Chillicothe. It's good news today that Mr. Aldrich brought us about the Tri-County grant. So I'm always cautious about what we're going to commit ourselves to the future, but this road, I believe, if we invest some money in it, it has huge potential for the village, and it's a whole nother type of corridor. I think this could be our ecotourism corridor, but also a corridor, again, that could attract some housing. And we have there is land available to do some homes or some really unique types of residential development in that area. So I just ask you to consider that, and not only for future, but for the people who are living there as well. And we want to make a safe road, so I think the lighting will certainly enhance that.
As Director Aldridge stated earlier, one option is, extending the TIP district as well. That could always be an option if we're tight.
I think that's probably something that needs to be done soon. Yeah.
Well, I do know that we had Client Associates already start working on that a couple years ago, so I know that we discussed this, so I think that it was started then, and then I got to the point where we paused it.
And there is interest by investors of what's going to occur on Route 29, but people are waiting to get in, but I think it's important for us to stick with our vision and, be selective about what's going to develop there, but it could be a lot of types of development. So,
and I think we have I think some of the feedback we've heard is that the lighting that is presently there may not be satisfactory for safety reasons. I think this road is a pretty thoroughfare. I think the one important thing that you said, Wayne, and you said a lot. There was a lot of important things, but you had said that if we did polls ourselves, it's 1.2 million, and this is 850,000, potentially 425, if we can get that forgiveness. So that is somewhat attractive as well. I think investing in our community below the hill, I feel like since we've been up here, one of our first things we did was we had a strategic planning session, and one of the big things was how do we connect the bottom with the top? How do we get those two communities to feel as one? And I think making this investment down there is a good step in the right direction. It's not lost on me, Brandon, or Trustee Weisenberg, what you said, though, the optics of this. But Wayne, maybe you can, or Director Aldridge, you can help me understand. We talk a lot about sending out grant applications, which was due, you said, on the 30th of this month. Then after that, there is another vote to actually spend the money. Right. Is that what's happening here?
Yeah, that's typical. So after the grant, we apply for the grant. If we get the grant, there'll be another agreement. So that would come before the board, typically in this case, just with IDOT. And then I'll say, I don't want to, everything in public works is not always sunshine. Costs change, estimates change. So you always had to be a little bit flexible with things like this, and that'll apply to most projects, not just this type of project, but that's the process. There would be other opportunities to vote on.
So, and Director Rogers or Council, maybe make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So tonight's vote is a vote in us pursuing this, but then there will be a subsequent vote
For the actual
allocation.
letting of the contracts on the project when we spend the money.
Okay.
But I think the goal would be to get this done and improve the road for our citizens, but to get someone else to pay for it. So that could be done through, a business development district. It could be done through getting the TIF districts extended down there. And also, we have to prioritize what we ask for, but if there are federal earmarks again, Congressman Sorensen has already invested $1 million federal dollars in water main replacement there. This could be something that we ask for in an earmark, couldn't it?
Yeah, we did last year, actually, for this project. The other, the grant, the IDOT grant that Regional Planning announced, I'm always hopeful that something happens where IDOT agrees to pay for something that, hey, you didn't pay for it on our project, you got to help us out too. So there's that, and there's also other grants that, we can use to help with that match. So we'll certainly look at that. But I think it's, if you know this project and you've talked with some of the folks we have at IDOT and other places, very high priority project for them as well.
Well, and just to give an example, we have the shock over this increase, but I think originally the road was to cost $70 million, and that's escalated 20%, I believe, what Ms. Dvorsky told us.
Yes.
So they're absorbing another 20% of their original.
And I too, Mayor, like the idea of someone paying for it. Unfortunately, when it comes to the state and the federal government, it's us, or the printing press. But, so this vote is just for the vision?
Yeah.
Vision, not necessarily the finances.
The commitment will come soon, though. But this puts us in the line for the grant.
I would then call the question, if that's okay.
Call it.
All right. Madam Clerk?
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
Trustee Gett?
Aye.
Trustee Kazam?
I think she got just.
Sorry, aye.
Trustee Reichert? Aye. Trustee Wigginton?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Any committee chairs, would any of you like to report on anything before we go on to miscellaneous?
I just have one thing I wanted to say. I'm sure a lot of you have seen there's been some complaints with the garbage takeover that's been happening and some issues with pickup. I want to take a second just to thank one of our police officers. I wish I knew who it was. I don't know who it was, but there's an elderly couple that lives on my street, and the garbage men dumped portion of their lawn yard trash into the yard because it had some mulch bags in it that the contractor had left in there. And so then they had this huge pile of lawn waste in their yard, and were not fully able to pick it up, and a police officer stopped and helped them clean that up. So I just want to thank whichever officer it was. I'm really grateful that they were able to do that for them. But also I think that we need to kind of bring this to the forefront. I think we're eventually going to have a conversation if service continues in the route that it's been going. And I know Chief Sutton is already kind of working on that, but it's not been a good week or so.
Well, we can do that, but please encourage all the residents to make us aware here at Village Hall, so we know that they are bound. Council, I'm looking over to you to keep up the same level of service under this contract. But we all know Gary Manis went over and above the level of service that he committed to us every week. And seeing Gary out there myself many times, so we'll do that.
So Chief, did that happen? Did they, I saw the post, but did the GFL or whatever they are, did they dump the garbage?
I was not aware of that until today, till Trustee DeVore told me that. I will look into it, I'll find out, I'll get the information.
The neighbor watched them do it.
Right,
so.
no, I don't
No,
dispute
not
it.
the neighbor they did it to, but like the house, that neighbor, the neighbor next to them watched them do it.
Right, no, I don't dispute it, but I don't know if we need to codify this in an ordinance, but we have enough problems with people dumping garbage on the street anyway. If our garbage company is coming through and dumping garbage, that's a huge issue.
Well,
We should address it with an ordinance.
Well, I will reach back out to their administration and have another sit-down with them. I think it's time, I think, just in the last couple of weeks. And, I anticipated some of this, but not so early on. I will reach out this week and set up something and sit down with them and let them know what all of our concerns are, because we're getting a few, the PD as well.
Right.
I wasn't aware of that, but I will find out who that was.
I would just let
Let's
them,
take the diplomatic route first, and then if we have to get council involved, we'll send them a letter. Does that make sense, council?
yeah, because I doubt they would do that in Morton or Dunlap, so they just can't dump trash on the street, if that indeed happened.
It was yard waste.
Yard waste, so it's still
But
trash, yeah.
I agree, I
Right.
agree. But I just want to be clear, it was yard waste.
Right.
But, I really just wanted to take the moment to thank the officer for helping them. I thought that was above and beyond their job duties, and it was nice to see.
Thanks for bringing both of those items to our attention. Anyone else?
I just had one reminder. The Taste of the Heights is Thursday, 5 to 9. The alternate route will be the same as usual, Marietta to Columbus to Glen. So we'll have, I'm sure it'll have a good turnout. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. It's this Thursday, 5 to 9. And again, I want to thank the Public Works Department in advance for all their help.
Also, thanks to the police department. I don't think we've ever had any issues with this particular, so again, police stepping up and making sure. And then I'll also thank the mayor. I know we and I had joked about it a little while ago, but liquor license for this project, so thank you, Mr. Mayor. I
hope he won't be bartending.
I actually will be.
Well, I saw that beer you poured last year.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Any miscellaneous? Wade?
Mayor, so at your next meeting, we've tentatively got scheduled a presentation on the active transportation plan by Jim.
Tri-County doing that, or?
No, Jim Klein is. So he's the contractor, the consultant for Tri-County. So should be interesting. I think we've made a lot of progress on that. And then there'll be another public meeting on October 22nd for that particular plan. Yeah.
Thank you. So Mike, you're out there. Can we make sure we get information out to the public about that presentation, please? Anyone else under miscellaneous?
Yeah, I'd like to just let people know that the repair at the Glen Elm curve is going to be taking place tomorrow. They're finally going to be able to get that repaired, and we'll get them cones in that street back open like it should be.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else?
Also a reminder that next Friday is homecoming. So public come out and support the school and come check out the football game. I hear it's going to be a real good one.
Good.
Yeah, we stand a chance. Coming from the football coach.
Yeah. All right. We would be at general comments from the audience. If there's anyone here tonight that would like to address the board on any topic, please come forward to the podium, give your name and address, and try and keep your remarks under 5 minutes. Comments are open.
Mayor Phelan, I do have some correspondence that I'd like to read.
Madam Clerk, I apologize.
No,
Go right ahead.
This is addressed to the board. I am explaining my absence from village board meetings from this point forward. I have lost complete faith in the trustees exercising their duties to the citizens of Peoria Heights. After year-long discussions and debate, the board moved forward, hired a new fire chief, and outlined what we, the people, and the board expected of him. He lived up to and surpassed expectations. In May of this year, everyone heard the same startup fee and cost to the village. There were no new or hidden numbers. Trustee Wigginton and Administrator Sutton laid out the number we were going to be working with. The board voted in favor of the amount and started the process of approving it in the budget, and so went the quest for our full-time fire department. Abruptly in August, with a couple of business closing doors, we had a knee-jerk reaction by the board to pull the carpet from under our newly formed fire department. The members of the boards are so unsure of themselves, perhaps they should resign their positions. What we now have is micromanaging at its worst. I shall be back in the loop when the initiative is on the ballot and out of the hands of wishy-washy trustees. Ballot referendum will give the voice to the electorate, not a handful. Sincerely submitted, Mr. Ray Lockhart, 722 East Marietta Avenue.
Thank you, Ray, for taking the time to send us that letter. Still have comments from the audience. Comments from the audience going once, twice. Comments are closed. We be at payment of the bills. I'd ask for a motion to pay the bills.
Make a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to pay the bills. Any question on any of the bills or discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk?
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
Trustee Gatt?
Aye.
Trustee Kazam?
Aye.
Trustee Reichert?
Aye.
Trustee Wigginton?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
All right, that passes. The bills are paid. Next is the treasurer's report. I would ask for a motion to approve the report.
Move to approve.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve the report. Any discussion on the report? Questions on the report, or discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk, I think, do you want to read the report? Let's
Sure.
read that. Thank
All
you.
right. As of the end of July, in the village-controlled accounts, including restricted funds, there was $9,502,448.67. In the water-controlled accounts, including restricted funds, there was $2,267,895.44. As of the end of August for the village, there was $9,734,894.85. And in water, there was $2,098,151.40.
Now, are there questions? And that uptick in the general fund due to more personal property replacement tax coming in, is that?
Unfortunately, no. Right now, it is due to the TIF funds actually have a fair amount in them because we have not made the payments for the development agreements as of yet, but we have received the majority of the funds in. Those will be made soon.
All right. Madam Clerk? Call the roll, please.
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
Trustee Gatt?
Aye.
Trustee Kazam?
Aye.
Trustee Reichert? Aye. Trustee Wigginton?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
All right, that passes. The treasurer's report is adopted. There be no further business coming before the board. I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it, we're adjourned.